SRB Media.
Once upon a time, Chris Webby-Brown and myself had the idea that a little podcast about Speedway might be of interest to someone. We was right, it was of interest to exactly 11 people. And now 10 years later we're still broadcasting, and for that we thank you. Only on the Speedway Tavern. Okay, and welcome to the Speedway Tavern for our special 10-year anniversary show. Can you believe it's been 10 years, Chris?
I can actually, yeah.
Okay. It's not been quite 10 years for you, has it, Matt?
Not been quite 10 years.
Yeah.
I went around the regions a little bit before I came here.
I beg your pardon?
He was still at school then.
He was still at school, yeah. He's still at school
I've
now.
actually been...
Or was that just hanging around schools?
Yeah,
Yeah, that might be true, actually. To be fair, I've been broadcasting a lot longer than these two, actually, but...
Yeah, it shows.
Oh, no, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, so thank you for joining us, those of you that have. We've started half an hour early because we thought we would reminisce a little bit. We've got a couple of interviews on tonight. Well, we hope we've got a couple of interviews on. We've certainly got Mr. Bruce Cribb will be joining us at 8 o'clock. We're sweating a little bit on Phil Herne at the moment because he's out and about, and we're just waiting for a phone call, basically. I know where he was. He couldn't get a reception, and he's moving to where he's going to be. And if he gets to where he's going to be on time, he'll give us a ring. And
So we will hear your fine ring during the show.
Yes.
But as it's the birthday show, we'll... I think we'll look the other way for that one.
So well, we're very hopeful, because I have to sort of say that if we do get Phil Herne on the show, I might just turn to jelly, because he was my hero when I was a boy. So...
I can say apologies at the beginning. The camera wasn't working, and now it's decided to work. So,
okay, that was nice of it. Well, it's just like the first show, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like. Can you remember that first show?
Not really. I can remember shouting to
yeah.
a little plastic microphone and hoping that somebody was listening.
Perhaps we should just go through a little bit of the history of the show. And by the way, put your comments up on the shout box as per normal, and we will sort of come to them. And I know there's been a few bits of interest to do with the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about that, Shirley.
I'm sure. Don't call me Shirley.
Hey, the old ones are the best. Right. So, well, what I remember of the beginning of what was 5-1, the 5-1 podcast originally, wasn't it? That's how we started, the 5-1 podcast.
Yeah.
What I remember...
when podcasts weren't that sort of like familiar, really, were they?
No. What I remember was getting an email from somebody that I'd never met before, but I was aware of him because he was on the Birmingham Speedway forum, and you know we'd spoken on the forum as such. But he emailed me saying, I'm doing a little show, a little rock show. I've got this new software on the internet. If you go to this address, you'll be able to hear it. So I did, and he played far too much David Bowie, as I remember.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was interesting, and I thought, well, that sounds like fun. I could do that. So I said, what software do you use? And he told me, and I got it, and I did a little show. And this got me thinking, and it also got Chris thinking at the same time.
Which is dangerous.
It's it doesn't happen often. So I got in touch with him, and I said, do you think we could do a Speedway podcast? And he said, that's really funny that you said that, because I was going to ring you up and ask you exactly the same. Do you remember?
Yeah, vaguely.
So we came down here. I had my one mic, which we managed to hook into his computer in the corner of this room, just over there. Just in that corner over there it was.
Yeah, all 2 megs of it.
Yeah.
Was it Amstrad?
We couldn't get it working. Remember, it only worked down the left-hand channel, so it was coming down everybody's left-hand ear. We couldn't get it to work down the right-hand channel, and we did this little this little podcast. We'd never spoken through these mics before. We was going, okay, so now for the it's like that, shouting, because we've got the one mic between us, so we had to sort of shout at it. And 11 people listened in. For some reason, this encouraged us.
And we still haven't paid them for that.
No.
Well, you know it personally, don't you?
We do.
And for some reason, this
I'll tell you what, family came in really handy in those days.
yeah. For some reason, that 11 people encouraged us, so we did it again the week after, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
For the same 11 people. I think it was stayed on 11 people for about a couple of months, I think. But we just carried on broadcasting and just slowly improving until we've got what we got now. At one point,
Still hasn't improved, but
somebody else got in touch with us and said, I'd like to do a Birmingham City show. So we suddenly thought, we've got a radio station here. We've got 2 shows and we've got a radio station, which we called 5-1
Radio.
5-1 Radio,
Yeah. I should have done the logo out, really. I've got the logo still.
Oh, well, if you find it,
it's on
the show.
SRB Radio's page. So,
and so that's how it all started, really. And then at some point, I can't even remember how you joined us. Did you just turn up at the door and say, "Give me a job"?
His face was pressed to the window.
Well, of course, I'd obviously done broadcasting a long time over at Walsall, so I was on a sort of sabbatical from there, and then, just out of the blue, I heard about the Speedway Tavern. I thought, well, this might be a good way of getting back on the bike, if you like. Obvious one there.
Do you see, that's the skill. See, he's obviously done it for longer than us. I mean,
I think he brought beer on the first one, and
that was it. Yeah. That's the only time he's ever brought beer.
And then he got involved, and that was 2013, I think. And,
wow.
That was when both of our clubs were going for the Elite League title. Of course, I think that season.
Yeah, and we beat you.
Yeah. And then Paul beat you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it's been going ever since, and I've loved every minute of it, to be honest. Well, most of it. So.
Yeah.
And we've just seen this little thing grow and grow and grow. I mean, can you remember what our biggest audience was?
Ooh.
It was somewhere in the region of 20,000.
We have freakishly had 20,000. Yeah, I don't know where they come from. I don't know where they've gone.
They're
out there somewhere.
So. Before we go any further and in this celebration, we should mention the really, really sad news that we've all. I don't know how many people out there have all heard this, but this is from Stoke Potters, and it's just a headline on their website. I don't think it's even been picked up on the BSPA website yet. It says, it is with regret that Stoke Speedway has to inform all concerned that Newcastle-under-Lyme Stadium Limited has been sold. The Potters will therefore complete the 2019 season and will not be operating in 2020. Not great news.
Yeah, it's a bit of a short statement, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
it's a bit of an abrupt statement, to be honest.
Newcastle-under-Lyme say a lot, and it doesn't treat the fans with any respect.
It's disappointing, to be fair, but, Stoke... It's been a few years since I've been there. I think the last time I went there was for the Brummies' first league match back in 2007.
That was a great day.
Yeah. And it's a real shame because, I know people seem to have a bit of a downer about Stoke because it's you can never describe it as being one of the most picturesque stadiums. But on its day, as a racetrack, arguably it was one of the best tracks in the league, in the country. Even
it was in its day. I mean, when in 2007 when we went down there with Lee Compton in his pomp at the time against Jason Lyons, those were some great races. Those two had.
I mean, I can remember Paul Pickering when he rode there in his prime. Very few riders could beat him round Stoke, and I think even Les Collins was there towards the end of his career. He was still a classy rider even then. So. And of course I went there a few times that season that Cribb ran there after Dudley Wood closed. They didn't really get the crowds there because I think the Crawley fans weren't really keen on travelling all the way up to Stoke, and Stoke fans were particularly enthralled about the idea of supporting Cradley. But some good trips up there, and hot on the heels, of course, of Coventry's we hope temporary departure, but we're still obviously waiting for
We don't-
news on that.
There's no news coming forward at all, is there?
Yeah, it's a real disappointment for. I mean, you'd class Stoke as Midlands loosely, wouldn't you? Because it's in the Midland area.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, when we started in 2007, it was our local derby. That was
Yeah.
it was. There wasn't anyone localer, if that's a word.
I mean, having Birmingham in the league with Stoke was obviously a godsend to Stoke because they've got big crowds. Same with Cradley when the two sides were in the National League. So, very disappointing, and we don't know the full details of what's actually gone on. Has it been sold for redevelopment? Has it been sold?
Who's been sold?
It's only just been confirmed in the last sort of hour or so, but. Hopefully we'll get a bit more news and.
Whatever. It's very sad, and I think it's sad that Stoke supporters were perhaps not treated with a little bit more respect than that. Very sudden. I mean, as far as I'm aware, I didn't even know this was in the offing. If there's any Stoke fans out there,
I mean, I know Stoke. I know Dave Tatum in particular has just put. Dave Tatum gets a lot of stick, to be fair, but he's run Stoke for quite a number of years now. And they've had a lot of problems there, with the issues with the power and repeated break-ins at the stadium. It's a shame because Stoke, for me, as a club, Stoke's a big city. It had the potential to be, something very, very big there, but.
Yeah, it was a nice little stadium that was let run down a little bit, and
just a bit. Yeah. And
you have to think that if Birmingham had a stadium like that, we'd have done something. We'd be crying out for that sort of facility. It'd be brilliant, but it is what it is. Duncan Pemberton says, "Hi guys, not been to Luma Road for a few years, but back in the day helped out down there every week. Paul Gray and Dave Tatum were promoters. Dave had so much enthusiasm for his Potters. Such a shame for people like him. I might actually make a sabbatical there to go and watch their last match. That might be a nice thing to do." Craig Smee, very sad that Stoke has closed. Been a few times in the past. Track was one of the best in the country at one stage. Stadium was a dump. Another team gone. Needs serious investment, the sport. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was never. I mean, the guy that does the filming for Rerun with me. I mean, he was a regular up at Stoke, and I mean, he was telling me that he remembers going there when it first opened in the 70s, and it was or maybe even in the late 60s, and he said it was practically the same as he does now, to be honest. It's a shame, as I say. I mean, you don't want to see any club close down.
Yeah.
And,
Alan Atherton said it was said to me earlier in the season this was coming, but I was told it wasn't going to happen. Been sold before it falls down.
It is a bit ramshackle, to be fair. I think, as I say, it's been at least 12 years since I went there, so yeah, it was a bit ramshackle then, to be honest.
I think the supporters fallen down quite a bit as well, but
yeah,
I think they're the only club that can be said for, unfortunately. Yeah, well. Let's see if we can get the vibe
upwards. It's supposed to be a party.
We can get the vibe upwards. But I just wanted to get that out there. Solidarity to our Stoke Potters friends. So there you go. Back to.
I'll say that a few people are on.
Okay.
Brian is called. All right, on this. Jeff Daniels, Alan Atherton, Dylan Spuddy, Paul, Duncan, Craig, Alive.
I'm wondering if there's anybody out there that were one of those 11 listeners.
Me?
Well,
you. Yeah, and the dog.
Yeah. We'd love if you heard that very first 5-1 podcast. We would love to hear from you. That would be something. That would be something. Craig Smith, do you think the supporters fell because they were a National League team? I think the support was falling when they was in the Premier League, and I think they never looked like winning anything, did they? And I think that never helps. I mean, which is a bit of a warning to people like David Mason. I mean, we've had a great. I know it sounds weird to say we've had a good season this year at Birmingham because the racing has been great, but obviously Wooden Spoon is not
It was always going to be difficult
Yeah.
stepping up from the National League to the
with no
to the
assets.
Championship with no assets. And there's been some good moments at Perry Bar this season. I mean, it's like you say, the racing I think has been absolutely exceptional for some meetings. I mean, particularly the Newcastle meeting and the Sheffield meetings during the season.
That last heat last week wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I mean, we've got we might see if we can put that on actually, because there is a video out there of that heat. I never saw that coming from Teruania. Yeah,
he's got better, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he's got better. So.
Yes, absolutely. Brian Buck says the real mystery is that the original Stoke track in Hanley was a terrible racetrack, but always ran to big crowds. 15,000 turned up for the reopening meeting there in 1960. Luma Road was a far better circuit, but the crowds never came there. Okay. Lawrence Rogers, good luck to the Duck Dead Bulls tomorrow against Milton Keynes as they aim to win the MSDL. Absolutely, that would be nice to win something this year.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Good for them. You know, it's good to see that there's opportunities being given out to younger riders at Birmingham.
Yes,
well, so.
I think that's possibly one of the critics that could have laid against the Tony Mole era, is that there wasn't a great deal of opportunity for youngsters. Elliot Hunt, playoff dates have been announced for the Wolves. Looking forward to the Cradley doubleheader next week. Gonna be a late one. Good luck with that. Yeah, and Cradley have pulled themselves up a little bit.
They have a little bit,
lately.
So they're back in it, and obviously a double header next week. That's going, as Elliot says, that's going to be
track.
It's going to be a bit of a long day, I think, a long night even with the two National League meetings back
You're
to back.
You have to get through it quick. That's all. You have to get through them all. Gosh, it's all kicking off, and there's lots of things we want to talk about. But Ben T-Boy Clifton, when Kent started up in 2013, my dad visited Luma Road for the first time since he rode there for Canterbury in the 70s. He was delighted to see all the fixtures and fittings were the same. Alan Atherton was told some fans wouldn't return back until back in the higher league.
I think at the time the suggestion was from start that they were only going to drop down into the lower league for a couple of years to sort of build a bit of an asset base. But I think, was it 2011? I think Stoke dropped down. I think they dropped down the same season that Birmingham went into
up.
the elite league at the time, didn't they? So nearly 10 years. That's.
Elliot Hunt said Birmingham's last meeting of the season tomorrow. It's going to be a cracking meeting tomorrow, by the way, because Berwick come with. They need to win the match really, because they've got a good chance of playoffs if they do. Yeah. And obviously Ben Barker guesting for them at number 1. We know what he was like.
Yeah, Leon Flint making his return to Perry Bar as well. That's going to be.
Yeah, that will be good. And
as Berwick captain as well.
Yes.
So
yeah. And we ought to talk a little. And Jason Garrity will be back, so that's another. The matchup between Garrity and Ben Barker could be very interesting, as they both go for the same piece of track.
Yeah, you might need to widen the track, David.
Didn't Tobias Thompson ride particularly well last week?
He's certainly going to give Lawrence and the Masons a bit of food for thought, isn't he? On that
for
performance.
Next year, yeah. End of the season do is taking place on Friday the 4th of October at Perry Bar Stadium. Tickets £12 each, can be purchased at tomorrow's meeting. There we go. Oh, and England are getting beaten 0-1 by Kosovo.
I've just seen that flag of the screen.
Right, I'm just going to have to keep going through all these comments because they're all coming up, and I can't just ignore them. As much as what I want to do is talk about the different guests that we've had on the show, and your memories. So have a think about that while I go through this. Dylan Spuddy Hodgetts, can't help but feel the support for the sport as a whole seems to be falling in recent years. Numbers aren't what they once were, and it's clear to see BT don't care about league racing. I'm not sure that's clear to see. I'd like to know why you think that. British Speedway needs an independent governing body. I think we've all agreed. We've all said that before. And a streaming service rather than a pointless TV deal. If those two things come in, we could start to build a foundation for getting British Speedway back on the map. A streaming service might not be a bad idea now.
It's been talked about before, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you look at most people watching their television now on streaming services.
Yeah.
It's the way to go, perhaps. Would be interesting if you could get a deal with Netflix or something. Or I notice Amazon Prime are now showing live sport. that'd be another possible.
By the way, we do have some matches taking place tonight, so we'll give you updates when we get them. So
I think there's a big match, Glasgow versus
yes, that's
Newcastle.
currently Glasgow 27, Newcastle 20.
That's closer than I would
After
have expected.
9 heats, yeah. So in fairness, Newcastle have got a strong top 5. It's just at reserve where they're really. They've got Ulrich Ostergaard guesting tonight at reserve, and he's won his opening.
He's been riding well. He rode quite well last night.
Not guesting, obviously, won his first 2 heats. So,
and we ought to say that Ellis, I think of his name now, Adam Ellis.
Yeah,
he's riding well. He rode well last night, didn't he?
Yeah, certainly. That's very quick.
So that'll be good for tomorrow as well. Ben T-Boy Clifton, we definitely need a media deal that maximises exposure whilst hopefully bringing in money to the sport as well. Yes. I would pay a £5 for the match of my choice, said Duncan Pemberton. Yeah, I think I probably would as well.
Yeah. That's not keeping fans away from the meetings, though.
It's that's the part that's the thing with the streaming service. It depends on how that works. You need some way of making that something that attracts new fans. Well, obviously, if it's on BT, if you've got your BT, you paid your subscription, you get your Speedway as part of it, and you turn it on. You think, oh, this looks interesting. So
I think we saw last night, didn't we, in the Peterborough Swindon match? I mean, there was some. It wasn't a classic meeting, but there was one or two very good races.
Good races, yeah.
The big thing for me was the size of the crowd.
Well, to be fair, they was surprised this meeting went ahead, wasn't they? Because they'd had quite a bit of rain.
Off night, poor weather conditions, although it didn't rain during the meeting. And Peterborough haven't had a very good season, so
hopefully the Warriors can get some points at Leicester tonight and make their first playoffs. I mean, it's coming up to that sort of part of the season. I have to say, this guy had a big grin on his face as he came in this today, because we was all saying didn't look like Wolves were going to make the playoffs, and my life, they're there and looking. I mean, to go to Poole,
got to Poole and pick up maximum points as well.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Just Neil Middleditch had been talking in the press during the day about whose Poole were going to be picking us when they finish top. So.
Well, they might well still finish top after Swindon at Peterborough yesterday. So
what on earth was Alan Rossiter doing in that last stage?
Yeah, Jason Doyle.
Didn't he know Swindon needed the 4 points? They've still got 4.
It was a strange one. It was a strange one. I mean,
I've got to say, I think if Swindon had got the maximum points last night, I think that probably would have been enough for them to finish top.
But now it's not.
Now it's up in the open again. So I mean, Peterborough have got a couple of have got a couple of matches left. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on in those two. So,
but nobody's going to be choosing Wolverhampton, are they?
Well, you think at the moment
you would think
Wolves would be the team to avoid.
Particularly Poole, we're not going to.
Yeah, Ipswich as well. Ipswich would be a bit vulnerable, I think. They've not had a very good end to the season, but they're in the top 4 because they did all their hard work earlier in the season. But at the end of the day, if a team's good enough to finish in the top 4, we've seen before, anybody can beat anybody.
Right, favourite guests. Wes and Chris has disappeared. He must have known I was going to speak to him.
Yeah.
So, who's your favourite guest, or unfavourite guest even?
Well, of course, we have had a world champion in this room, haven't we?
We have, Jano Pedersen.
The 1991 world champion.
I was very, very nervous that night, and he was a gentleman. He was
great bloke, Jano is. Always, even though you're half a crowd, I always enjoyed watching him race. Obviously, the Dane with the Black Country accent as well. So
yes,
he lived just up the road from me actually. So did when he was riding with Gridley. So.
That was a great night, and he was talking about training youngsters and how that should be, and which is sort of what started happening now. What he was talking about. So that's good. Chris, your favourite guest that we've had on the show? He's going to say the same thing, I bet you anymore.
Probably. Well, in the corner there where we all were. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That was quite And your face was a permanent grin.
Yes, it was. It was, and I'm not even a Cradley supporter, but it was.
Ooh, every week.
Well, that might be news though.
That might be news. So we'll. Oh, it is news.
It is news.
Okay, I'm going to send that over to you because it's a telephone number for Mr. Herne.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, now I'm happy.
Your face has gone white now, isn't it?
Now I'm happy. Thank you, Lawrence, for sending that to me, by the way.
Shall I put a cushion on the floor in case you fight with it?
I love it when a plan comes together. I've gone
Doesn't
there.
happen very often, to be fair. So.
I thought one of the most interesting people that we had in the studio, for all the wrong reasons probably, was Alan Phillips. Because when he came here, we were riding high in the Elite League at the time, looking to, we finished top.
It was Wolves and Birmingham were top 2 at the time, weren't they? So.
Yeah, and we finished, and we went to Wolves, and it was a nice night. Beat you. But when he left, we all looked at each other and we thought, well, that didn't feel right.
No,
it was.
I've got to be honest. I didn't say anything at the time when he was in the room, but I felt the vibe I got from him was negative. I thought he's particularly his criticism of the local media, which I thought was saying wrong, that they didn't give enough credit or coverage to Speedway. I thought that was. Well, I think the Birmingham Mail have been very good for Speedway.
Birmingham Mail have been brilliant, and Radio
the Express and Star as well. So yeah I thought
you have to say the local
disappointing.
Television stations that have been poor, but they've always been poor. Even back in the 70s, they were poor.
So I mean, unfortunately, it seemed to be sum the Alan Phillips era up, didn't it? So,
this is an interesting thing that Dylan Spuddy Hodgetts has just put up. Edinburgh run a streaming service, and they do it so you can watch it if you're within 15 miles. I can't watch it if you're within 15 miles of the track. It uses your Google location through your laptop or PC to determine whether you can watch it. I think that's the way forward.
They do a very good update service on their website, Edinburgh. Actually, it's
I had noticed that.
It is very good. So,
guys,
what do you think?
What do you think about Nichols and Harris retiring? Painful to watch.
Scott Nichols was disappointing last night, wasn't he? It just wasn't his night.
Yeah, it's up to them, isn't it? I mean, it is painful to watch. Chris Harris is still.
Scott Nichols has had a good season, I think. No, he's been. I mean, obviously he's riding for one of the top sides in the Championship in Leicester.
Yeah, I mean, Championship is where he is really now. It's his level now. He's a heat leader in Championship, and if he's earning across, then he shouldn't retire. That's what it's about. Yeah. And same with Chris Harris is good in Championship. Is possibly
one thing he'll definitely get with Bomber though is 100%. Every time he goes out of the track, in the face of unfortunately some rather unfair criticism.
We have a result. Glasgow 36, Newcastle 24 meeting abandoned. Result stands after 10 heats due to heavy rain.
So that's maximum points for the Tigers.
Yes, thank you for that, Lawrence. That's we will get in touch with him soon. So, Chris, I think I'm going to send you off to give Mr. Cribb a ring, and hopefully this is where we hope all the technology works. And we'll be speaking to Bruce Cribb in a moment. While you're doing that, we'll carry on having a chat about whatever we decide to have a chat about. Did you watch the Grand Prix?
I did, yes.
Rubbish Grand Prix?
Wasn't great, was it, to be fair? I've got to be honest, Vaughans has never been attracted of. I mean, I know there's a lot of history about Vaughans and with the heritage there, but it's never attracted. I've really enjoyed watching racing.
Sorry, I've just got to say this because Alan Atherson's going to bust a gut if I don't mention, because he's mentioned this 3 or 4 times now that he's heard that it's going to be Eurosport next year, not BT. So, got that out. So.
Yep. Leicester 16, Isle of Wight 14, by the way, in the National League. So that's another one we're going to be keeping an eye on. Yep,
absolutely. Well, there's a few updates coming on that on the shout box as well. So, but you're slightly in front of them.
Yep.
So
it's 1-1.
Ty Woffington looks better.
England, by the way. 1-1 England, by the way. So just
that's good. Just don't want to know about that. Ty Woffington looked a bit faster. Looked like he got more speed this week.
I think he's trying to get a bit of momentum for the next GP, of course, which is
Cardiff. That's going to be a great GP.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one.
You've got to say Schmarzlick's now in the driver's seat, but it's not over yet, and he needs one bad.
Possibly
8:30.
Oh, he's going to come on at 8:30.
Yeah. Possibly.
Okay. Go on.
Possibly, you could argue for the first time, maybe. Leon Matson, I think the commentators were saying this. Leon Matson, maybe realised whereabouts he was in the race. Yeah, obviously a lot of expectation on him being in Denmark as well, and it wasn't his nice, unfortunately. That might well come back and be quite costly to him at the end of the season. But Bart Smazlik now in pole position.
It's still looking interesting there. It could go to the. It could be the decider in Cardiff, couldn't it?
I think the maths are, if Bart Smazlik scores, I think 12 more points than the nearest rider to him, he's won it in Cardiff. I can't see that happening, but you never know. I tend to think it'll go all the way to the last one in time. So, but
well, that would certainly be a nice way to finish. Finish
Cardiff's still going to be really huge, not just for.
Going to be a lot of Polish fans there now.
Yeah, I mean
there always is anyway. But
it's going to be not just for the championship, but for top 8 as well. So because there's so much to decide. And
so we've just had a slight change of plans. So Bruce is going to be on at 8:30 now.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask 2 things of Chris if he's listening.
I am.
First of all, can I have my phone back, please?
Yeah, I'm just getting the number off it.
Oh, okay, and then because I need, it's got my notes on.
Make a coffee for us.
Yeah. And if you want to go and see if you can get hold of Mr. Herne, we'll chat to him first. I'm just getting my bits and pieces up that I need for the interview because I was ready for.
Dylan Spuddy Hodgett says, can't help but feel being released from Wolves upset Scott's mojo.
Yeah.
Could tell he was happy at Wolves, wouldn't be surprised if we saw him back at Monmore next season for the whole season, if his average fits.
Our resident Wolves expert.
I think it was the numbers for Scott, really, because, listen, Scott was tremendous in his time at Wolves, but unfortunately I think the way things were going, if he'd still been there when the new averages came out, he would have been at number 1, which unfortunately for Scott Nichols isn't at number 1 now in the top flight. And I think,
well, he showed that last night, didn't
it didn't show initially, but I think it's shown in the end that Wolves wanted to go with the team that they'd started the season, or planned to start the season
it's
with,
working
and it's working out at the moment, yeah. So,
and I've got to say, his name's gone again.
Ryan Douglas.
Right, yeah, he rode well last night, didn't he?
Yeah, he rode very, very well. That's his sort of track, though, to be fair. I mean, he hasn't really sort of been brilliantly consistent at Monmouth, but he's getting there. And he's if he's going to be considered for next season, I think it's going to be a lot of it's going to be dependent on the averages as well. So, but no, good times at the moment, and with the playoffs coming up, it's going to be an interesting end to the season.
It is going to be interesting, and I mean, you said you wasn't going to make any predictions when you came in here, but you've got to be feeling quite confident because the momentum that you're building up. I mean, you went to Poole, and got full points off Poole.
Certainly wasn't expecting to go there and get a maximum points.
And they're looking favourites to
might be a bit of a I still think Swindon the favourites
to top the league. You think
to win it? I'll still make them favourites.
That's just taking the pressure off, isn't it?
Yeah, bit of reverse psychology. So.
You've got my headphones. So all this messing about, as those of you watching on Facebook, is just trying to get the phone sorted out because we're just so high tech here.
Yeah,
it's better than that first one when we had the one mic in the corner there. Right, hopefully this will now work, and hopefully I'm now talking to Mr. Phil Herne. Are you there, Phil?
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I'm really good, but I could do with you being a bit louder, Chris.
Here we go.
Yeah, is that any better?
That's fantastic. It's not your end, Phil, it's our end, don't worry about that.
Okay.
So, wow, first of all, I've got to say, I'm going to turn to Jally because, mate, you was my hero when I was a lad.
Oh, that makes me feel old.
Well, yeah, and me as well, actually.
He says that to everybody that phones up Phil, so...
So, obviously, you're a big Birmingham Speedway hero, and that's probably where you're most known for your riding.
Yeah, that's right. It's quite pleasing. I managed to get to Perry Bar on Wednesday last week, and yeah, it's still great to see a lot of the old supporters there.
Yeah, absolutely. They're still the same faces, aren't they?
Yeah, they look a bit younger than I do, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I was sort of looking through your biography, and you was now this is from Wikipedia, so we all know that it can be wrong, but we'll give it a go. You was born in Ballina in New South Wales.
Yeah, that one it is, up near the northern New South Wales, in 19 something.
Yeah, we won't. We'll sort of gloss over that. And you spent your beginning of your career at a place called Kembla Grange Speedway.
Yeah, Kembla Grange was a little track on the south coast of New South Wales where 90% of the riders that come to England back then started racing at. So it was a pretty awful little track, but it taught us all how to ride and gave us the opportunity to come to the UK.
Which, of course, you did in 1973.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And, I mean, how old would you have been then?
I was just turned 18.
Wow. I mean that's a long way to go for an 18-year-old.
It was back then. They don't seem to worry about it now. They travel all around the world younger than that. But, yeah, back then it was a big thing, I suppose, yeah.
I was sort of wondering how you was feeling when you first turned up at Birmingham. I don't know what New South Wales is like as such, but Birmingham's, particularly in the 70s, was a very, very industrialised, built-up area. It must have been a bit of a...
It was a bit different to where we came from in Aussie. You'll have to excuse me because I've got a rotten cough since I've got here. If you just give me 1 second.
That's okay.
Yeah, it was when we first landed, we went to Ipswich, which was not quite as busy as Birmingham, but the Perry Bar Stadium was a great little place and soon settled in and met a lot of nice people there, and yeah, it just went from there.
And what was your first impressions of the track? Because I imagine they were a little bit smaller than what you was used to in Australia.
Yeah, fortunately for me, we had a little training track where we practiced and learnt to ride. And it was probably a similar size to Perry Bar, but it was such a good track at Perry Bar, it didn't take long to get used to it. It was always prepared well, and a lot of good help there from Arthur Browning, George Major, Johnny Hart. It was a great team.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And, of course, the best team then was the next year in 1974 when we won the Knockout Cup and the league. Yeah,
that was a pretty special year, and that's probably the most memorable year in my whole career, especially the second round of the Knockout Cup against Eastbourne. You know, the place was packed and the atmosphere was brilliant, and yeah, I was so pleased to be part of it.
There's a few people's eyes glazed over here because I'm always going on about that Knockout Cup final against Eastbourne. And what I remember was that I think they felt that they'd won it after the first leg, because from what I remember from that season, they'd come to our place earlier in the season and got a draw.
Eastbourne really always went well. They had a good team that year as well, but the Sunday before when we went to Eastbourne, myself, Arthur, and the few others who should have got more points, we just sort of had an off day, and I can remember them all turning up on the Monday night. They were pretty confident, pretty happy, but they looked different when they left, that's for sure.
Yeah, it didn't last long, did it? I think it took about 6 or 7 heats before we'd overturned it, and it was pretty memorable night.
It was, and it's my favourite memory of Speedway, to be honest.
I was looking at that 1974 season, and you had 14 full maximum scores and an average over 10 points that year. It's not bad.
Yeah, it was just one of those years where everything just fell into place, really. I think there's a few riders who were around that year that was equally up to that, scoring how I did. But I was just fortunate enough to get out on top, and it was a great year.
Also, you've had been in the World Pairs Championship. We'll probably gloss over that because you only had one ride, which I think you broke down in, if I remember right.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. The only time I got up was in '76 when we won the World Team Cup.
Yeah, that's what I was just going about to say, with John Bolger, Phil Crump, Billy Sanders and Gary Middleton. Yeah,
that's right, yeah. And actually Bob Humphries was a reserve at Ipswich, and they swapped him for Gary at White City. I don't know why, but yeah, that was a great meeting too.
And then when you left Birmingham in 75, you went to Newport, is that right?
Yeah, that was. I'd done just about everything I could do in 74 in second division. Unfortunately, I had to sort of step up to Newport. I probably could have waited another year, and because Birmingham went up the next year in 76, I think it was.
That's right, yeah, 76.
But yeah, it was just one of those things that happened, and it was good at Newport as well. They were good supporters there, but Birmingham was where I would have rather been riding for at the time.
And then, of course, you went to Bristol, and they had a bit of a special track at that time, as I remember.
Yeah, I had a habit of picking bad tracks. Newport was not the favourite track of most riders in England, but it was a great home track. So when you learnt to ride it was pretty easy. And Bristol was much the same. It was like a dog track. It's terrible to
they had
ride.
sand on, didn't they? For a couple of seasons, they tried experimenting.
Yeah. But once you got used to it, it was all right. But bit different.
Yeah, I could imagine away riders not being very enamoured of it.
It was quite funny at Newport in 75, nearly probably 2 or 3 times a month, the away team number 1 would just happen to break down on the motorway for some reason.
I love it. So I want to take you back to that 1974 Birmingham team, and there were a few characters in that team. I wonder if you got any stories about any of them.
Probably nothing that I can say on here, but no, we had a good team. Like, he had Big Arthur, who I met up with him last week and had a couple of beers with him before the meeting in Birmingham. Always try and catch up with Arthur. He's a great fella.
Yeah.
George Major, Johnny Hart, Steve Wilson, Carl Askew. Yeah, it was just a good team and great. Everybody got on well. Nobody was any better than anybody else, and everybody did their job. Yeah,
I mean, as you say, it was a special team. I understand you're making your way over to Cardiff in a couple of weeks to watch the GP.
Yeah, we are. We're going to Cardiff, so any Birmingham supporters, I'll be down there and look forward to seeing you all. We always manage to come to England when Cardiff's on. We actually come over for a wedding of Alan Chappell's, whose dad used to sponsor Doyley last year, and it's fortunate enough he booked his wedding around Cardiff time, so we could get them both in.
Brilliant, good stuff. So have you got any thoughts on who you think could win the GP this year?
I like to see, it doesn't bother me who wins. I think Bartos will, but I like next week at Cardiff, I like to see Emma win it and Bartos come 4th, because we're actually going to Poland for the last round. So it would be awesome if it comes down to the last meeting.
It would. What do you think Ty's chances are?
You never know with Ty. He had a bit more form last week in Denmark. He's been world champion 3 times, so you can't fault him. Unfortunately, he had a bit of injury this year, but I'm sure he'll bounce back, and he'll be hard to beat there.
Yeah, he's never won it, of course, so I imagine that's quite a big sort of motivation for him.
The pace would go off if he did.
So I don't know how aware you are of the show, but what happens is that we have people on shout boxes and so on piling questions at us, and there's one just popped up, so I'm going to put that to you if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Which is from Alan Atherton, who wants to know what your thoughts are on current Speedway. I'm guessing he means particularly in England.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I've just read on Facebook this afternoon that Stoke Speedway's closed down.
Yeah,
so
we've seen that.
That's another one that's gone. I think Speedway in general has just got way too fast. We were fortunate enough to be in the best times of Speedway with big crowds, but it's hard. When I go to Perry Bar, it's still the same faces that were there years ago. They just can't seem to grab the younger generation to come and watch it. So I don't know what the answer is.
No, I mean, I think at Birmingham in particular, and I think Isle of Wight's another place that's been doing it. They have been trying to attract, and believe it or not, there are more youngsters at Birmingham now than there was at the beginning of the season. So,
well, that's a good thing, that's for sure.
Yeah, so they are trying, but what the answer is, I think that would be a nice magic pill to know. Just
out of interest, Phil. I mean, I think you've been to the new Birmingham track a couple of times now. How do you compare the current Birmingham track to the one that you rode on the other side of the road?
Yeah, as far as riding goes, I can't say because I've only ridden the old Perry Bar, but the new track's in great shape. And each time I've been there, I think I've been there 3 times now, there's always been a good close meeting. It's a bit hard because the away team seem to like it as well, which makes it a bit harder for the home riders.
Yeah.
But you get pretty good racing there, and it's a nice stadium.
Duncan Pemberton would like to know who was your hero when you started out at Speedway?
Oh, geez, I suppose. Well, actually, before I started Speedway, my hero was Gordon Gasco. who was an ex-old Wolverhampton rider, an Aussie fella. But then I suppose you've got to go look towards Ollie Olsen, Ivan Major, and anybody you raced it, who you lined up against the tapes with, and you had respect for. But I think my all-time favourite rider would have to be Tony Ricardson.
Okay.
Yeah, Tony, 6 times world champion. So
yeah, you can't say better than that, really, can you?
No, he could do things on a bike that we could only dream about doing. And like Jason Crump, different riders for different eras. In Ivan Major's time, he was the greatest, and in Ricardson era, I think Tony was. So what can I say?
Which riders in your time did you like riding against, and which ones did you not like riding against?
I didn't really mind riding against anybody. I can't say as I had a dislike for anybody I rode against. Back then, it was everybody seemed. It was a lot more friendly back then. Everybody seemed to get on really well, and there's a couple. One springs to mind. Tony Childs, who used to ride at Hull.
Tony Childs, good lad, yes, I remember.
Yeah, he was a bit, and I remember at Hull one night after. I think George or Arthur might have had a bit of a set to with him. He knocked one of the Birmingham riders off. So I think I couldn't actually say there's anybody I didn't like riding against or was scared of, or we all did things we shouldn't have done, and that's just part of the sport, isn't it?
Yeah. Simon Corbett would like to know what your favourite and least favourite tracks are, Phil.
What, back then?
I presume back then, yeah.
Well, Perry Bar was one of my favourite. Funny enough, Perry Bar and Newport were my two favourites, because both home tracks. Least favourite, it's hard to say. Especially in 74, I didn't mind any track, because everywhere we went we scored points. But I'm just trying to think, maybe...
What about Crewe?
No, I love Crewe.
Oh, okay, because that was an interesting place.
Yeah, most Aussies love Crewe. Even when Ricky Day first came to England, he flew around big tracks like that, and I think the first time I went there, I might have got about 7 or 8 points. But yeah, that was a good Aussie track, because most of them back home are fairly big. I really can't say I had a dislike for... In 73, 74, every track was new to me, so they were all pretty good.
And of course you've got two sons, Lee and Jay, and they both followed you into Speedway. How are they at the moment?
Yeah, they're both good. Lee's married with a little girl now, and Jay's married with a little girl. Jay will actually be here next Friday as well. He's coming over for the wedding, and fortunately for him, he's always loved Carter, so he's managed to book that in as well, so he'll be there as well next week.
Excellent. Well, Phil, I'm not going to keep you much longer. I want to thank you very, very much, for appearing on our 10th anniversary show tonight. And
my pleasure.
And, mate, just for all the pleasure you've given me over the years, I don't know what to say. Just thank you very much, mate.
No, that was my pleasure. I got paid for doing it, and I love doing it. And it's always good. Every time we come to it, this will probably be my last trip to England. I'm getting a bit old for this now, but I always try and, if I do come back, I'll always get to Perry Bar and just make sure it never closes again.
Yeah,
absolutely,
amen to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, mate. You are a legend.
No problem. My pleasure, and thanks for your comment. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Take
Phil.
care.
And hi,
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
and hi, and goodbye to all your Birmingham supporters.
Cheers, Phil.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
Phil.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
I can't get this grin off my face. I'll pop that over to you. Okay. I don't. That's me. That's me done for the rest of the show, I'm afraid.
Go on, off you go. Go on, I'll take over.
What a gentleman!
Fantastic guy, yeah. And he didn't mention the cricket either.
Let's not go there, please, very much.
Shall we encouraging him? So.
Update on a few scores. First.
Well, of course, it's 1917 at Leicester now in favour of the Herne side, so that one's quite a close one, possibly closer than people would have thought. And of course, the Glasgow Edinburgh match has been abandoned, but that result stands.
Yeah, Glasgow won, yeah.
Yep.
There's been a few things about training schools, that there should be more training schools come on the... I do read and listen at the same time. Yeah, not bad. Craig Smith says more training schools at different clubs, or at least promote it more. Belview used to do weekend training schools at Hyde Road, I believe. So did Stoke. Yeah, that's something that's... Now Stoke's gone.
Yeah,
that's a training school.
I think the problem ultimately with the training schools is getting access to the stadiums at good times for these young lads to practice.
Obviously, I mean, it's what I was saying earlier. If Birmingham had a facility like Stoke, it would be brilliant because you could do things, like that. But obviously, with the planning permission and all the rest of it that we have, we just don't have that. I did wonder. I remember back a few. I'm just riffing now, really. A few years back, Martin Smolinski and Egon Muller were doing these electric speedway bikes, and I did think at the time, would that be the answer for training schools? Because obviously they don't make any sound.
Cheaper as well.
And they're cheaper and they don't make any sound, so you'd be able to run even at a place like Perry Bar. If you put a small training track in the middle, you'd be able to run training schools with something like that, because it doesn't, it wouldn't affect the...
If the Brummers were still at Ballsy Green, maybe you could do training schools there. Because that would be more suitable area, wouldn't it?
Well, on the tarmac, because it's all been tarmacked over now.
If there was a track still there, it could.
Eric Parsons says that don't blame... I can't see that because... Don't blame stadium owners for selling stadiums when they make big money from property developers. I don't care. Stop selling our stadiums.
Unfortunately, I think there's an element of truth about that. If you're a property developer, then if you're a stadium owner and there's more money to be made from selling it to develop property, then you've got to look at, you're not going to look at it from an emotional sense. You're going to look at it from a business sense. So it is frustrating, of course, but no, I don't. Without being too much of a downer on it, I don't think any track's safe, really.
No, I don't.
Particularly, clubs that share the tracks or have the hire the tracks out. So
the problem is that we're losing supporters now because we're losing tracks. And
I mean, you always get I think every club has got a sort of a section of fans that are genuine Speedway fans, and they'll go to other tracks during the week and watch racing there as neutrals. But by and large. But that's the problem, isn't it? Because because there's the fewer and fewer tracks that are becoming further and further spaced out. That becomes more difficult for that to happen, doesn't it? I mean, I think our two clubs are the two closest in the UK, aren't they now? So about 11 miles, I think. So
Lawrence Rogers says, "Great guy is Phil Herne, the whole family are." And I need to say, I know Phil's been out and about all over the place, and he's sort of got back to where he needed to get back to be on the show tonight. So I really, really appreciate that, and as you say, class act. There you go. Jeff Daniels, Leicester 23, Isle of Wight 19, still quite close. That is genuinely interesting. And any more down there for me before we go on to a point for Isle of Wight may well just be enough to secure playoff Speedway for the first time. That'd be what. Anybody think Buxton may reopen to catch the Stoke fans?
Can't see it.
Can't see it. Well, not with the
current setup of the National League, unfortunately. So, because I mean, Buxton were one of those clubs that they were able to bring riders through and then sell them to make a profit. But of course, doesn't really happen now, unfortunately. So,
Dave James Alex would like to know, and hello, Dave James Alex. That's a new name. I haven't seen that one before. Who do you think will be the 4 wild cards for next year's GP series, based on the top 8 finishings as they are? Well, obviously, you've got to say Ty Woffin's going to get one.
I'll be absolutely astonished if Ty doesn't get. I mean, Ty's not going to get in the top 8 now.
No, of course not. Is Jason Doyle? Is he in the top 8?
No, he's not. Max Fricks, of course, he's going to be in the GP next year, I believe. So,
but he's not long been a.
Yeah, they might want another Australian. So, when Jason Doyle is the obvious candidate as an ex-world champion, the interesting one for me is going to be Greg Hancock.
Yes,
because of course he's obviously not going to race this season.
This season, no.
By the time the next.
Do we even know that he's going to race next season? Well, that's the thing. We don't know what
absolutely.
that situation is.
Greg's obviously got more important issues to worry about at the moment than whether he's going to get a pick for next year's Grand Prix. But of course, by the time the next season comes round, he's going to be approaching the big 5-0. And after a year out, is he going to be able to be competitive? I still think he would have been competitive if he'd have ridden this season. I don't think he would have been.
I have a feeling that was his goal, to get to 50 and race at 50. Yeah. I got a feeling that was his goal, so it'd be nice if he could.
I think
achieve that.
Especially with Monster's influence on the GP, I think they will want an American rider in it.
And who else would there be?
The 2 up-and-coming ones, obviously, are Luke Becker and Brock Nickel, but I think it's far too soon for for those two guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff Daniels said, so we haven't answered that question really, apart from Doyley and Woffington.
Well, we're going to have it's a wait and see game, isn't it, really? I think it depends on who misses out. So.
Well, yes. Thoughts on Woffington giving Sweden a miss next season?
Yes, I saw that yesterday. Yeah, not riding in Sweden next year.
It's a strange one, isn't it? I mean,
is he going to just do Poland and the GPs? I don't see him coming back to the UK.
No, that's what he said. He's going to do Poland and the GPs, and he's going to give it a go. It's because all the travelling is very into all his diet and exercise and all of that. It's interfering with that.
He's arguably the most professional rider in the field, I would say, in terms of that. I mean, it's frustrating for Todd because I don't think he's riding particularly badly. He just doesn't look quick. And he was even before the injury. He just
looked better at
he looked better at Voynes, but I just think he just looks slow compared to last season.
Of course, Cardiff isn't a track that you necessarily need speed. It's a bit of a smaller, one of the smaller tracks, isn't it?
It's probably not a track that suits him, to be honest. But he's done well there in the past, and I think he's going to be up for that one because it's the one thing that he hasn't done yet. He's won his own GP, so.
Doyle's 3 points away from the playoffs and Zager's in 8.
Yeah, Matty Zager's he's obviously back in the GP next year. But
thanks for Alan Ethelton for that.
He's been brilliant the last couple of Grand Prix, hasn't he? I thought he was going to win on Saturday, to be honest. And he could be a real spoiler at Cardiff, I think, as well. So.
That's not a bad. So, we haven't mentioned Lambert, have we? Wildcards likely to be, this is from Ben T-Boy Clifton, Waffy, Doyle, Hancock, and one of Smektala, Lambert, Mickelson, or Nicky Pedersen. I don't think Nicky Pedersen.
Well, Nicky obviously he's obviously injured.
He's injured at the moment, isn't he? Yeah.
I can't see Nicky going back in the series. Bartosz Smektala, I think he's a very, very good rider, but are they going to want any more poles in it?
Well, Poland will.
Poland will, but I don't know whether the FIM will.
Lambert.
Robert Lambert.
He hasn't been out.
He's had a tough year.
Yeah.
He's had a tough year. Injury hit, obviously.
Probably had too many rides.
Yeah. I think maybe Robert Lambert's possibly a year away. Maybe.
Depends on whether they decide they want another Brit in there, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's only him going to get it, so.
Mickelson?
It's a possibility.
Didn't look that great.
In Voynes?
Yeah.
Nah.
But Voynes is possibly not the right sort of place to judge. Craig Smith says he thinks that Greg will retire, sadly, and Lawrence Rogers says he hopes not.
Well, circumstances.
Yeah.
What an astonishing career he's had, though. Yeah. I mean, to be nearly 50 and still...
And that's... Do you know what? That would be the saddest thing for him to whimper out. It'd be nice for him to have a final year and say, this is my final year. And that would be a nice way for it to happen, wouldn't it?
Obviously it's being kept very, very quiet at the moment because, obviously they don't want it, it's a private family thing that they're going through, so... But,
Ben T-Boy Clifton says he thinks something like 7 or 8 current GP riders only do Poland this year, including Madsen and Emil. So, we're going to see if we can get hold of Bruce Cribb in a moment. Dylan Spuddy Hodgetts. I just call him Spud. I don't know why I do that. With Waffy having a young family, I can understand why he would want to drop another league. I mean, that is a good point, actually. And Poland pays, so Sweden was the obvious one to drop. GPs and Poland will give him a steady income and gives him more time to spend with his family, which is understandable. I don't see Lambert getting one with Waffy getting one. They won't give 2 Brits a wild card.
Yeah, this is what people, I think, tend to forget is that these riders do in a lot of cases have young families. And if they're never at home, they want to see the kids grow up, don't they?
And Duncan Pemberton says, did anybody hear the Darcy Ward interview on Aussie Radio where he was mentioning how much money he was earning? No wonder top guys not bothered about UK when comparing with other leagues. I didn't, but
they don't need to race the UK now, do they?
No.
It might have been important one time, but but again at the same time you wouldn't. Is it really wise for clubs to break the bank just to
get
the top riders back? I think Speedo's, in a lot of ways, Speedo probably needs to start living within its means in this country.
I think it needs to build up again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It needs more tracks. It needs more tracks. It's really that's a very simple thing. You need to get to make it the whole thing more attractive. And then you start getting more riders because you need the more tracks.
Absolutely.
Okay. I was looking quizzically at Chris, hoping that we had Bruce on the line, but disappeared off into his little corner now. So hopefully that's going to happen soon.
Like a scolded John.
So I can hear noises off. So
yep.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that is if Chris is talking to.
Could be anybody knowing Chris, couldn't it? Yeah. And here comes the
man himself.
We have Mr. Bruce Cribb on the phone. Are you there, Bruce?
Yeah, hello.
Hello there, Matt. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on our show. It's our 10th anniversary, by the way, just so that you know. We've been doing this for 10 years now. And I seem to remember we've had you on before, probably quite nearer the beginning than now.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. I can't remember what the guy's name was that was on at the time, but...
Probably me. I've been here forever.
Yeah.
Just feels like forever, so...
Yeah. Right, so I'm just going to jump in. First thing I'd like to talk about, and probably the most important thing at the moment for you, is you've got a book out.
Yeah.
And I've written down somewhere what it's called. I've actually got a copy of the book and forgot to bring it with me. Cribby's storybook.
Yep, that's the one.
That's the one. Yeah, it just came into my head like magic. Yeah, I mean, I'm halfway through it at the moment. Lots of anecdotes about your life and in Speedway and around Speedway. It's a really interesting read. I guess the most important thing about it is that all the proceeds are going to Speedway riders that are in wheelchairs and so on.
Yeah, the permanently injured Speedway riders. Yeah, some of them are not in wheelchairs, some of them, but they are as good as, you know.
Yeah.
And, I just think there's not enough done for them, you know. For the guys that are hurt each week, and of course these days there's so many Speedway riders get hurt. It's terrible. But the boys that are permanently injured, that's what this book is for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to get your opinion on that from what you just said. Do you feel that there are more injuries these days than there was in your day?
Yeah, these boys are riding rocket ships.
Yeah.
They are real rocket ships. They're going, you know, technology has just gone on. It's absolutely fantastic. No, brilliant. But unfortunately, some of the boys are getting hurt. And they're not all getting hurt, but there seems to be a lot on the injured list as the season goes through.
Yeah, we can vouch for that
absolutely.
at Birmingham this year. I mean, it's interesting though, isn't it? Because obviously, in some ways, you would think Speedway's safer because of the intervention of air fences and so on that all tracks have to have now.
Yeah, actually, I think some of that is some of the causes as well.
Right.
Because the boys have got that in the back of the arm, all right, air fence are going to land in. Well, back in my day, there wasn't any air fence. There's going to be some wire and there's going to be some posts, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, on certain tracks, just wood and then steel fences like there was at Exeter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone, you know, had respect for everything that was there, you know.
Right, so perhaps you feel a little bit that because they know the air fence is there, maybe they take a little bit more risks than they would if it wasn't there.
That's right. There's a little bit less respect because they can take a little bit of an advantage, you know, and say, oh, well, I'll go for it, you know, whereas we went for everything anyhow, but we knew what we were going to pay for it if it turned out wrong.
Yeah. I suppose the other difference is that in your days you was wearing leathers.
Yeah. Well, not only that, yeah, we were wearing leathers, but geez, we weren't going anywhere near as fast as these boys.
Yeah.
Like these boys are really flying. Gee, whiskers.
Yeah. Have you been on
really?
one? Sorry.
No.
You haven't.
No, what I have got is I've got an ice bike in New Zealand, which is a laid down, and I put a laid down engine in it.
Right.
To ride it out to New Zealand and rode in two tracks to do the track records. And then as soon as I had my first ride on it, I had no practice on it because I've never done practice when I've done these exhibitions, you know, ice racing and gone for track records. No practice, because if I practice in front of the crowd, they know what's coming. And they don't know what's coming, it's even better for them. So I've done that all over Britain, you know.
Right,
everywhere I didn't practice, and nobody knew. In fact, I can remember going up to the start line and up to the tapes, and I could hear kids over the fence laughing at the state of the bike, thinking, you know, what's he going to do on that?
Right.
then after 4 laps, they just stood there with their mouth wide open.
Yeah. It is an awesome sight to see an ice speedway bike on a speedway
Never
track.
had the pleasure of seeing it
Have you
before,
not?
so it's.
I've said,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
few
it is
shoots
good.
But
It
yeah,
is good. Right, there we go. Having said that, I got this bike in New Zealand. It's got a laid-down engine in it.
Mhm.
And it's the first time I went out and rode it, no practice. I went round the first corner, down the back straight, and the front of the bike lifted up. Then I could feel the
Right.
bike flexing underneath me and the back wheel tucking under with the power coming from the engine back to the back wheel, pulling the back wheel over while the front was in the air. And I thought, crikey, I hope this all touches down nicely when I get the other end, because I just left it flat out all the way, peeled it over, and it touched down nicely, fortunately. And then I thought, crikey, these things are too bloody flexible, you know.
Mm.
And then after I rode the bike, done the track record and all that, got back to England. Then I went to an ice meeting. I said, hey, why isn't anyone riding these lay down frames, you know, with the engine laid down? I said, oh no, they're too flexible. They're dangerous. I went, oh, cheers. No wonder. The Jawa factory gave my mate, who was their importer for Jawas, they gave him this ice bike. They said, oh, you know, you can have that. You know. I sent an engine out to New Zealand, all boxed up. I sent it to Robin. I said, here, put this in the bike, mate. I've done an engine for it with this laid down. He goes, yeah, okay. And sent carburetor out and everything. Everything all dead right. But that was the first I knew about it. And then the first time I knew anything was riding it and getting back to the first ice racing meeting in Europe. And then I'm standing there and I'm, why are they using them? And of course it comes up. They're terrible. He said that flexible. They're all over the place. And I went, yeah, I had that.
It's interesting that you should say that, because I was having a conversation with somebody not last week actually about, it seems to me a trend on speedway bikes now that they're pouring the air as they go down the back straight. And
yes, yeah. Or any straight, but I know what you're saying. When you say the back straight, that's always the fast straight.
Yeah.
If you're at a speedway meeting. But if you're on the inside of the track, they're both fast straights.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Because people say, oh, I've just been on the inside of the centre green, you know, at Wolverhampton, and I watched it, and it was absolutely brilliant. I said, well, that's it. I said, when you're watching, the furthest away straight always looks fast. When you go in the middle, both straights look fast. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I can
vouch. It is
vouch.
the way to see speedway,
Yeah, I can vouch for that, because I work the flag at Birmingham, so I actually stand on the centre green. So yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the first time I did it, I must admit I stepped back 3 paces as they came past me at the corner, because it did take my breath away. But yeah.
It's like that another incident which is similar, like John McGuinness, you know, the TT rider, multi-times champion on the Isle of Man, you know, and he's not on the Isle of Man. He's at this this road racing course, and my mate Mick Cochran, he's the one of the boys that are helping out. You know, anyone falls off, he picks them up and sorts them out. One of the marshals. So Mick's there with his mate, bloody old 90, and up there, and this John McGuinness has a crash, you know, he gets spat off, and he's sat there beside them, and he's going, bloody hell. And he's sitting there watching the racing, and he goes, bloody hell, do we all go this fast? Yeah, in fact, you go faster than these.
You know, it is surprising that the shit, and with no brakes.
But that was why I've been on the inside looking, and it looked faster on the inside out. But there again, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is the place to watch it. So I'm just been looking at little bits and pieces of your career, and I would imagine that the 3 highlights of your career would be when you were the New Zealand champion in '72, the World Team Cup in '79, and British League champion in '69.
Yes, that's correct. No, that is dead right. And then getting to the world final in the ice racing, that was getting the rostrum actually in ice racing, that was brilliant. I finished 3rd at Assen. That was absolutely brilliant. So that's the 4 of them. You missed one.
I missed one. Yeah, I looked at your speedway career. We blame Wikipedia for that.
you can tune them up, just pump it up. You go, yeah, hey, there's some alterations to be done here.
Yeah. I'm just going to sack the researcher, basically.
There was a mirror over there. So
But you've so when you first came over, I believe you started at Poole.
Yeah, it's 65.
Yeah, 60.
I got here on August the 1st, 1965. The season was virtually over.
Right.
And that blew me over to get them out the cart, and I dropped them in it. Because I wasn't as good as they expected, you know.
Right.
And of course it was bloody hard. Like, I hadn't even been riding for bloody months, you know. It was out of season for us in New Zealand. But they flew me over and, whatever, go at that, and had a go. And I went, oh, crikey, you know, so it was all disaster all round.
Mm.
But then they said, well, you can go home at the end of the season if you want. I went, no, I'll stay here until... My dad said, when I left New Zealand, he says, don't come back until you can ride a speedway bike. And I went, oh, okay. So I stayed. And then when I went back, I won everything there was to win when I went back that season.
Because your dad was a speedway rider as well, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yeah. He was a really, really good speedway rider and grass track rider. New Zealand grass track champion, you know. He was good. And then when I went back and I won everything, he was really proud as punch, you know. Mm-hmm. Then when I became world champion, well, you couldn't shut him out. All the boys in the pub, they said, oh, your dad came in and said, shut up. He was always on about it.
Fantastic. So in 1965, when you joined Poole, you would have been 19, is that right?
Yes, it was exactly 19.
My maths is good, you know.
Yeah. I've been brought up in England as by the English since I was 19.
Right.
And everyone said, well, you know, why don't you go back home to New Zealand? I said, unfortunately, as things went on, I started riding ice speedway, so that ran the speedway season over and into the ice racing season. So I couldn't go back to New Zealand, and if I did, I only went back for a couple of weeks or a month, you know, and I squeeze a month in sometimes, and then come flying back to ride in the ice racing, you know.
Yeah. I was just wondering how that felt as a 19-year-old turning up in this quaint little town of Poole, as it would probably have been in 1965. At 19, it must have been quite daunting.
Bill Andrew came to pick me up, you know, from the airport at Heathrow. And all you could see was this clown standing in the middle of the of this bloody airport with this big suitcase and a pair of handlebars hanging off the top of this suitcase. And that'll be him. I'll go and pick him up. But I arrived here on the 1st of August, and I can remember sitting in his car, and we're driving to Southampton from Heathrow, and I can remember this record coming in from the Beatles. It came on, and it was Help. That was the first day they released. It was the 1st of August, 1965. And so that was my greetings into England.
Right.
Then we got back to Southampton, and I noticed all these houses were all joined together. I couldn't get my head around that. I hadn't seen houses like that, you know, like they would be put together like semis, you know, and I hadn't seen it before. Then he took me down the pool. He said, I've got to go down there and have a practice day down there. I went, yeah, okay. We went down as we're going through Poole, you know, I'm looking at all these houses. He said, what are you looking at? I said, all these houses all joined together. I said, I can't believe it. He said, well, yeah, he said, you'll get used to it after a bit. I said, yeah, okay. I said, I can remember seeing Coronation Street, there's rows of houses all stuck together. I said, but the first time I seen them in twos, you know, and that really got to me, you know. But then after a bit, I got used to everything, all the English way of life, everything. Absolutely brilliant.
Okay, so I don't know whether you know how this program works, but we've got people on our little shout box here chucking questions at me for you. So I'm going to just chuck some of them your way, if that's okay. Okay. First of all, Mick Cochrane says, "Fame at last. Thanks for the name check, Cribby. Sweet as bro." So, just throw that one out for you. Dave Twine said he's seen Cribby in '73 season with Cradley. What was Bernie Person like?
Oh, he was great. Absolutely brilliant. And it was like party Bernie to me. Every time you think of Bernie, it was always party time, you know, always, you know. Absolutely brilliant. But really good technician, you know. he would set his bikes up really good, and the frames, he would keep them straight and look after them really good. And then he had some help from some friends at Omega's. Ben Anderson, he used to ride for Wolverhampton, and he went to Omega's and they started Omega Pistons, which is still running today. Very, very good. They do Formula One pistons, they do Speedway pistons, right up to the latest ones now. Absolutely really good technology stuff, but Ben was really good, and he used to do the crankcases on 2-valve Jawas of Bent's, of Bernie, sorry, and it was really good. And I went in one day and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "We're just doing these cases for Bernie." I went, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, what's the guts?" He said, "Well," I said, "they all go out of shape." And he said, "It's really good once you've done them." I said, "Oh, shit, let's have some of that." And so I said, "I'll come in, I'll bring the other engine in." I said, "Have a go at mine." They went, "Yeah, okay." So they did it. God, what a brilliant job they did, So then as I started going on and racing, I thought, this is absolutely brilliant. So then I started a tuning business, and then that's what I brought into it, this blueprint, straightening all the cases out. And so I did all that. Simon Wigg was one of my top runners that was riding them. And I said, "Well, what do you find the differences?" He says, "Mate," he said, "it's like, the difference is like from black to white." I went, "Really?" I went, "Yeah." He says, "And it changes. The engines change so that before they would spin, and then all of a sudden they go back, and it'd jump on one wheel and then go out."
Right.
He said, "Not now. Once the cases are straightened," he said, "it just blends from spinning to gripping in one smooth hop, and it just keeps throwing you down the straight." But he said, "What you notice is they keep going faster and faster the further down the straight you go. When the engines have gone out of shape," he says, "they don't go any faster from one end of the straight to the other." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." So we did that for quite a bit, but he was the forerunner for it because it was the first one I did, and he did it, rode it, and went, "Oh, great, we're going to have all my engines done."
Right.
Before I knew that, I'd done 12 of them.
Oh, we've got loads of stuff on here for you, so I'm going to try and get through a few of them. But before I do, we have in our studio my co-presenter Matt, who happens to be a Wolverhampton supporter. Did you ever see Cribby ride, by the way?
I never saw. I didn't. I was just missed you, Bruce. Unfortunately, but of course you did have a 2-3 year spell at Wolves, and unfortunately, of course, it was sort of in an era where Wolves weren't doing so well. But of course, you were in the team alongside a certain young man called Hans Nielsen, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. In '79, that's when I was world champion. I was riding for Wolverhampton. It was brilliant. I rubbed his nose in it. It was absolutely brilliant. When we go round on a tractor ride after we're going round, that was fantastic. I said, when we won the World Team Championship, and he looked the other way.
You must have seen some interesting matches between those two teams, Wolverhampton and Cradley, because the supporters were quite notorious for not really liking each other.
It's even funny now how the Cradley supporters have to go there to watch their team that they're there now. And they dread having to go there. It's really brilliant.
Oh, I've got to ask you this question. I meant to ask you about this actually anyway, but Brian Bucks just reminded me about it. Do you remember being excluded at Birmingham and then pulling out the blue exclusion light from its socket and smashing it?
Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. I was just there. I was just so annoyed because the guy beside me jumped and his bike stopped before the take, and I just saw this wheel take off on my left, and I just dropped the clutch, and it took off, and it landed on top of the take, and I pulled the clutch in, and it broke him. I went, And I looked up, and all I could see was this bloody blue light. So I threw this bike on top of this guy that was next to me that done the jumping. I threw it on him, so he's sitting at the start line with another Speedway bike hung on the side of it. Right. And I looked at the kick wheel, I can reach that right. Then I undone it and threw it over on the bloody dog track. And then I got back to the pits, and then John Bowl just going, calm down, they've turned your light out. I said, you silly bugger, I hadn't done it, throw it over the fence. And Johnny Bowl, he cracked out, he just started laughing, he couldn't stop laughing anyhow. years later, not that many years later, but I'm in Russia, and I'm at this reception, and everyone's all had this dinner and that, and this Finnish guy comes up to him and he puts his hand out and says, "Oh, I must meet this electrician from Birmingham."
Mm-hmm.
I went, "Oh, so you're kidding?" He goes, "No, I was there when you took that light out from the exclusion light out and you threw it over the fence. I was on holiday in England." He said, "Absolutely brilliant." He said, and then everybody the way he just called me the bloody electrician from Birmingham.
Right, we're really running out of time. Unfortunately, I could keep this going on for hours. But what would be very important that I must make sure that you do is, where can people get hold of your book?
Right, I'll tell you what, the best thing I can do is give them the phone number. That would be the best, because anyone in England, you can just phone this number. It's 01922.
Okay. And I think, Chris, you're writing that down? Yeah.
And then I've got 715083. And it's in Walsall. And it's just easier to do that than anything, because sometimes people have been trying to buy them online and haven't been able to.
Right.
But if you speak with them, they'll do anything they can to help you get it sorted for you.
Okay. Well,
that would be the best thing I do, is just take the phone number, and then throw that on there.
Okay, that's been put down on the shout box now, and we'll also...
Okay, and then it's Curtis Sport. That's
Curtis
who
Sport.
it is.
Okay.
Yeah, Curtis Sport.
Brilliant. Mate, you have to update us on how much money you make. That would be interesting to know. And guys,
I'll do that. We can't do that till they've all sold. Once they've all sold and they've swept up all the costs and everything, not a problem. But I have done everything, all my costs I've absorbed myself. When I've had to go anywhere, I've paid myself.
Brilliant.
So it's not coming out of the money.
Yeah.
It's all going straight into those boys,
Yeah, absolutely. So, get out there and buy it, guys. Get out there and buy it.
Yes, please. That'd be really good.
Bruce, thank you so much. I think we could, as I say, I think we could probably keep going on for another hour with this, but unfortunately, time.
No, you'll have to call me back in again just to sweep up all the garbage you've forgotten.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm good at that, apparently. But anyway, thanks again,
Thanks,
Bruce. You take care, mate.
Yeah, no, good as gold. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Wow, that's
one of Speedway's characters, really. Isn't it?
I
mean, unfortunately, I never saw him ride. He retired.
I did see him ride, and I was there during that incident. It was funny. Speedway can be funny sometimes. Well, 5 minutes to go. Let's.
Come on, give us the teams.
Oh yes, we've
okay.
Yes.
First one.
Yep. Okay.
First one is Poole against Kings Lynn.
Forgot about this. Poole against Kings Lynn, and it's going to obviously be going to.
Put your scores on the shout box, and I'll fast break everyone. We will collate them.
Yes, you will.
I know, yeah.
Chris, you to go first on this one, mate.
Poole by 6.
Poole by 6. I'm going to say Poole by 12.
I've gone Poole by 6 as well.
Okay. And the next one?
Next one is Bellevue against Swindon, which is, of course, the Premiership Supporters Trophy final.
First leg. The final, yeah.
Yeah, the first leg.
Sorry, that was?
Bellevue against Swindon. Has it been a success, this Supporters Club? Supporters Cup, I should say.
Room for improvement. I think there's potential in it, but
right.
I think they've probably
so don't give up on it.
Yeah, they've got
like they do normally when.
Yeah, maybe tweak it a little bit. So.
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. I'm going to say. Do you know what? I'm going to say Swindon before.
Mm-hmm. I've gone Bellevue by 2.
Okay, so we're all in the same ballpark.
Don't know anything about what we don't know what we're
talking about. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
right.
Third one. Only 4 matches this week. Third one is Kings Lynn against Swindon.
Swindon. That's down to you.
I've gone Swindon by 4 on that.
Local derby, of course. I've saw.
Well, Kings Lynn, Swindon.
Yeah, geography never was my strong point. In which case, having said that, now I'm going to go Kings Lynn by 2, just to really.
We had Wolves had a local derby because Edinburgh.
I haven't come down from talking to Phil Herne, is the truth.
And the final one is Poole against Ipswich. Poole caught in May. That's Poole's last meeting of the season, and they may need that to
That's going to be an interesting
nick
match,
the top
isn't
spot.
it? Yeah. So
Because they might be meeting each other again in the playoffs. So, but I've gone Poole by 12 on that one.
okay.
I'll go Poole by 6.
I was going to go Poole by 6, so I'll say Poole by 8.
You'll kick yourself when Poole do win by 6. Though.
Yeah. I've got to try something different from him to
Yeah, we haven't looked at the league table, have we? I think when we put it,
I've put it up.
He did put it up, so yeah. Obviously, it's been a mad evening.
even with the extra half an hour, we've had a.
I know,
Crazy, isn't it?
but
Crazy.
yeah, that's what happens when you get two really interesting guests on.
Yep.
Thank you so much to everybody that takes the time to listen and to take part and. Keep us. Oh, hello. Thank you. Kept us going for
That's
the
his way of
last.
saying, or if we
Yeah.
get
No, we don't that long.
Kept us going for the last 10 years.
46-32 is the latest score at Leicester, by the way.
46-32.
With 2 hits to go.
Leicester pulling away,
Yep.
and well, they've won it now, of course.
Just to go back to the tables, who's at top?
I don't know, because that's far too small for me to read.
Ben T-Boy.
Yep, starting to pull away now.
Put that on the big
And one or two of us are now starting to close the gap on Webber.
I think we should deduct points for breaking the tapes or something. I'll think of something.
So no, I said one or two of us are closing in on Webby. One isn't, of course, but
Yeah, no.
I'm not happy. Okay, there's always next season. I hope there's always next season.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're Stokes, that's not true. Yeah, thank you everybody for your support for the radio station over the past 10 years. It's been a blast. Let's see if we can make it another 10.
yep, it's the 20th anniversary.
You might even buy a drink for that one. Take care, everyone. Thanks again. Bye bye.
Good night.
Enjoy your stay.